Hello everybody, welcome back to Everyman Prepping. And with all this talk about nuclear attacks or EMPs, and also with the fact that we're in the height of the current solar cycle this year and next year, we got the most sunspots, solar flares, all that stuff going on. I want to talk to you what concerns a lot of people, and that's what can be damaged by a CME, coronal mass ejection from the sun, and also what can be damaged and what is safe from an EMP, electromagnetic pulse, from a nuclear warhead being shot up into very high in the atmosphere and detonated with the gamma radiation coming down and affecting electronics. I figured I could talk to you about it, but I found a better source, and that is Dr. Arthur Bradley. He has a YouTube channel. I'll link it below, but he is a PhD. He's a scientist. He talks a lot about EMPs, CMEs, how to protect your stuff. He sells the stuff, how to do it yourself if you don't want to do it. But this video, he does a great job from a scientist's point of view explaining the damage that's caused by either a CME or an EMP. And you can see him here. And this is where we're going to start. But you can see up top where that he has the sun and a CME and nuclear for an EMP. But he does a great way of explaining it so it's easy to understand what is going to be damaged and what is safe. And that way you can plan accordingly for each event. So let's go ahead and get started with that. And please like and share, comment on the video, and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. So let's get going here with Dr. Arthur Bradley here.
So if you're worried about a CME, it's only for things that are connected to very, very long conductors. Those are the things that will be affected. So electronics connected to very long conductors.
And we're not going to go through the whole 8 minutes here. I'm going to give comments as we go throughout. It's about 5 minutes total as we go through it. I'll fast forward some parts in this, but we're saying long conductor. He's talking about the long transmission lines in the power companies and things like that. But let's go ahead and go listen to him
Such
here.
as the utility power grid, for example, could be affected. So one of the big ones are these industrial controllers that control just about everything from telecommunications, water purification, on and on and on you go. Power distribution systems.
He's talking about everything I said in power plants that could be damaged.
All these things are done by these industrial controllers, and those controllers are often called SCADAs. And there's been a number of tests done to show that SCADAs are quite susceptible to surges on the power lines. All right, so a big CME could certainly cause damage to those SCADAs.
And we're talking about big CMEs. They're talking like an X, 100, X50 solar flare, long duration, something that's going to put out a ton of plasma that's earth directed.
Those controllers, which could disrupt then those infrastructures, whatever it is they're trying to do for the country. In addition to that, you can disrupt things or damage things that are connected to the utility grid. All right, so anything plugged in at the time of a big CME could be damaged. Again, remember, a CME is like a swell of energy that will occur on very long conductors, and that energy will push itself into electronic appliances. So computers, appliances, anything really connected to the power grid.
So when a CME goes off, we might have some time. It might be a couple hours till it gets here. It might be a day or so. But like he says, anything plugged into your outlets, if that CME, if that power is traveling down the lines, it's going to be affected. So if we have a warning, you hear it coming, even a few hours, unplug everything from the walls, unplug appliances, unplug everything that's connected to the grid, and it should help protect it.
Has a reasonable chance of being damaged. The big one that people are worried about in addition to these SCADAs are the power distribution transformers. So transformers just convert from one voltage to another voltage, and they're used throughout our...
These are the big thing, these transformers. You're not going to replace these anytime soon. They're probably all made in China. They're huge, expensive, and what's the odds that they're going to come here? It's not carried in stock, so these go down.
Power distribution
Yeah, they're not
system.
coming back anytime
and
soon.
And a CME can certainly cause damage. These ground currents that flow could cause damage to those transformers. And some of the large transformers, we're talking about sides of buildings, are very difficult to repair or replace. And that was...
Yeah, just like I said, that's not going to happen. Now we're going to go on to what is safe. He goes on here for a while, but I'm going to fast forward here to a little bit to where he's talking about what is safe here.
Small scale things. So things that are safe are things like cars. Cars are relatively small. They certainly don't have mile-long conductors in them. And so cars are safe with the exception of if they're plugged into the power grid.
So all you electric car owners out there, and also those waiting for the Cybertruck from Elon Musk, if you're charging it at the time, if you're plugged in and the CME happens, you're going to fry your car. But everybody else, if you have just normal cars, looks like we're good. We'll still have transportation, ways to get around.
They're plugged into the power grid, such as an electric car or a hybrid car, then they have chance of being damaged. Laptops and other freestanding electronics. Well, certainly these things should be safe because if they're not plugged in, they're just sitting on a table somewhere, there's really no way for the CME energy to get into them.
So let me expand on that. So this can mean everything from your ham radios you see behind me, for communication, which is great. Your cell phone should be fine. Doesn't mean cell towers will work, but it's all small electronics. As long as your laptop's not plugged into that outlet, it's going to be fine. Any electronics that you use for your day-to-day prepping, your solar chargers, your solar backup generators, your actual real generator is going to be fine. Little voltmeters, anything like that, all that small electronic stuff, you're going to be good. So that's one big benefit of the CME over EMP.
Solar power generation systems are generally considered safe from a CME as long as they don't have a utility connection back, right? If they have a feed that they're providing energy back to the grid, that same feed could provide energy into them and cause them damage, all right?
So if you have a off-grid solar and a CME hits, looks like you're going to be good. You're going to have power afterwards, which is great. You're going to need to have some discipline as to not let everybody know you have that, but looks like you're going to be good. If you're grid tied, if there's a way to break that connection somehow before that CME hits, that's what you're going to want to do because it looks like it's going to go down.
So if they're not grid tied, then in general, a CME isn't considered to be able to hurt them. And finally, people always ask about batteries. Batteries are safe from CMEs. If they had a battery monitoring system and they were plugged in, all right, so they had a long conductor that enabled the energy to come into them, then those battery monitoring system circuits could be damaged, all right? But by themselves, if they're just freestanding, they're not going to.
All right, batteries are good. Now, let's forward a little bit here. We're going to start when he starts talking about EMP, which, like I said, is from the nuclear explosion up in the atmosphere. The radius of it will depend on how high the explosion was and how powerful the nuclear warhead was. So let's see what he says about the EMP now. I can tell you one thing, it's going to be a lot worse.
So it's very similar to the CME in that there's a component of the EMP that does couple into very long conductors, just like that. So all those things that we just talked about being affected would also be affected by an EMP. All right, so I'm not going to rewrite those, but those same.
So everything that would die under a CME that he just explained are definitely going to die under an EMP, plus all the stuff he's going to go through here. So yes, EMP, a lot worse.
SCADAs, the power transformers and so forth could all be affected. Plus, to make it worse, it can also affect small electronics, all right? So for example, freestanding electronics with solid-state circuits, these could be things like phones and radios and laptops. Your vehicles could be damaged as well. So things like cars and trucks and boats and airplanes could all be affected by an EMP where they would not be by a solar CME.
So we're not going to have much warning of an EMP probably. You might have a launch detection or something like that, but if you don't have stuff protected, the old rule, 1 is none, 2 is 1, all that. If you don't have backup communications, other electronics, and EMP hits, well, all that stuff, that freestanding small electronics, it's going to be fried if it's not in a Faraday cage or protective cloth or whatever. So keep that in mind. If like I said, that rule, 2 is 1, 1 is none. You're going to want to have backups and protected.
And then medical devices. And a lot of people worry about, let's say, like a pacemaker or hearing aids, the things that keep them functioning. And yes, those could be damaged. Those are pretty modern electronics that could be damaged. So hearing aids, pacemakers, insulin pumps, any kind of electronic-y device.
No idea how you have a backup for a pacemaker. If you have a pacemaker, EMP hits, I don't know, you wrap yourself in foil. I know they do sell EMP cloth you can make clothes out of. Maybe you get yourself a t-shirt if you're really concerned about it. I know you can buy them, you wear it, and it'll hopefully block it because that thing goes down, you're not doing too well.
Medical or otherwise could certainly be damaged by this EMP energy. Electro-optics, so if you have like a red dot on a rifle, people wonder, could that be damaged? It's not likely. They're pretty small scale and they're pretty ruggedized in metal housings, but it's certainly possible. It's one reason I wrap mine up in conductive cloth. Even while it's on the rifle, I just wrap it up.
So what is this conductive cloth he's talking about? He's talking about what's also called EMP cloth. You can Google it, you can search for it and buy it. It's basically cloth usually with silver threads in it lined up, and you wrap, like you said, your electronics in it, your red dot sights, your thermals, your night vision. Put them all inside of this, so because they won't be affected by CME, but EMP will fry them. That stuff, A, expensive, B, it's a game changer. You want to live, so look at getting yourself some EMP cloth to help protect it.
Multimeters or electronic tools and test equipment, also, those could be damaged, all right? So if you're counting on those to be used to debug things, you should put them in a Faraday cage or some protective enclosure. Portable power backup systems. So these are the small generators that are, everybody has nowadays. With some of them have little solar panels that fold out, but some of them are just a battery operated system. Those could certainly be damaged as well, which is why I recommend things like the trap or conductive cloth to cover them up. Solar power generation systems. Even if they don't have a utility grid connection, they could still be damaged by an EMP. All right, the panels themselves are unlikely to be damaged until you hook up the long conductors. But once you hook up the long conductors, it's possible. And the inverters could also be damaged. So there's certainly things that could be damaged.
So this is concerning. You have an off-grid system that's good for CME, but under EMP, he thinks it could get damaged. He said the panels will be good, but your charge controller, your inverter, your stunts, all that could be damaged. So, if you're using it off grid at the time, you're using it now, what do you do? Well, you have to have backups. You have to have a backup charge controller, backup inverter, and these are stored in, you can put them in Mylar bags as a Faraday cage. You can put them in EMP cloth. You can put them in EMP trash cans or other Faraday cages. You need to come up with the solution. I know it's expensive and all that, but EMP hits and all this stuff dies, you don't have power. And do you want power? Well, you're going to need to have backups. So remember that.
By those, and I've talked about how you might protect your solar power generation systems. So what's safe? Well, not a whole heck of a lot. Heavy-duty motors and generators, things that don't have any solid-state electronics in them. All right, just really heavy-duty things with just big coils of wire. They're not going to.
This is your, carburetor vehicles, old vehicles, tractors, diesel tractors that are old, 70s, 80s tractors, lawnmowers, things like that, very old vehicles, some diesel vehicles if they don't have a lot of electronics. That stuff's, if you can pick up one, have it as backup, at least you'll have a mode of transportation.
Effective. Batteries. Again, batteries are safe. Standard alkaline batteries are safe.
If
they have a battery monitoring system, this battery management system could be affected by the EMP. So it could cause damage to some sophisticated, let's say, lithium-ion batteries that had a charging control system in them. Things without solid-state electronics, all right? So anything that's really old and doesn't have modern electronics in it is much less likely to be affected, all right? That's because the gate dimensions on those transistors and those devices are much, much larger. And so old cars, for example, while they did have controllers, they weren't based on these really fast, tiny microelectronics that we have in today's.
All right, so that about ends what he's talking about there. He's talking about, the old cars and everything, like I mentioned. So that gives you a great rundown. Like I said, his YouTube channel and what he talks about, he goes through how to, fix things and what you can do to protect them. If you want more help on that, some questions, where to get some EMP cloth or, what to do, write in the comments below. Email me at everymanprepping@gmail.com. I can point you the right direction, get you started. You can check out Arthur's YouTube channel because, like I said, he's got a ton of information on that. But what you need to pull out of this is neither one are good. One's for sure going to happen sometime. Maybe not your lifetime. Maybe it is. That's the CME. The sun will send one. It'll be directed. It'll happen. Good thing about that, like we just reviewed, most electronics are going to be okay. Anything plugged into the wall, anything coming from the grid is going to fry. Have backups, have things unplugged. We should have a little warning or even up to a day's warning on that. So, but your generators and solar panels, all that's going to be good. EMP, unfortunately, a lot worse as he went through. Almost everything's going to get destroyed if it's not protected on EMP cloth, Faraday cages, or other means. A lot more devastating, and unfortunately, in the world we're in, we might be headed that way with China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, who knows. So I just want to give you kind of a initial start on this. Some people have been asking about it. So you know what the difference between the two is, what you need to protect, and you can choose what you want to plan for. And like I said, leave a comment below if you need help with this or need some direction on where to go find stuff and any other questions you might have. So hopefully you learned something from this. Hopefully you got something from Arthur and his talk there. And until next time, keep your ear to the ground and head on a swivel.